Hello and welcome to Airheads, a not-so-serious look at the serious business of royal rumours, gossip and gowns. I'm Tom.
And I'm Maeve.
And what a week we've had, again.
I can't believe how much has happened this week. I feel like this week has been a year long.
Yeah.
We wanted to start by thanking you guys so much. People that listened to both of our demented, rushed, very rough and ready episodes that we did the past week in the lead up to and immediately after Meghan and Harry's interview with Oprah.
It was amazing to read some of the really nice messages and emails that came through. We put a lot of crazy energy into those episodes, so it was great to see that it paid off.
And one of them did make Tom cry.
Yeah. I'm sure you know who you are.
This feels very embarrassing to say this, but we got some messages from people who were asking if we would set up a Patreon. We don't want to do that, but we have made a Ko-fi page. It's ko-fi.com/airheads.
Or you can go to our website, airheads.co.uk, and follow the link from there. I was so moved that people wanted to pay us to do this because, as we've said so many times, we just sit here in our flat recording this every week. And the fact that people want to support us and help us do that is wild to me.
But thank you so much anyway.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. But after all the madness of the interview, what did we expect from this week?
Well, if we rewind a little bit till last weekend, we were talking about reports that we were going to be blasted away by the Queen's busy schedule in the week immediately following the interview. We had heard that she was going on a charm offensive. She had quite a few things going on. She was more interested in focusing on the big issues.
We were so intrigued as to what quite a few things meant, and it turns out all she did was go on Zoom to react to pictures of Mars from the Perseverance rover.
What was it she said? Like, wow, it's amazing you can see Mars or something.
It's so funny that after this interview, she would rather focus on another planet than look at her own family.
But I wouldn't call this a charm offensive by any means.
No way.
I definitely thought there were going to be stories basically every day this week with palace sources refuting claims Harry and Meghan made in the Oprah interview.
Yeah, kind of like the way Kate's team really rushed to attack Tatler's Catherine the Great article as soon as it was published last year. They were straight on to the Daily Mail talking about how it was so sexist and snobbish and really piling on it. But it seems like this time round the household has really held its fire.
Until the weekend.
Yeah.
Because on Sunday we got an update from Buckingham Palace that they were going to be handing the inquiry into bullying claims against Meghan by her former staff to independent external investigators rather than an in-house HR team like we'd been led to believe.
Right, yeah.
The Sunday Times reported this as raising the stakes in the standoff between the Sussexes and the rest of the royal family.
I mean, we all want the royals to get a fat grip of their HR strategies because it's an absolute joke. But I hate how this is being presented as like a Sussex versus the rest of the royal family. It's just giving me such a headache. But the Times also said, the move to an inquiry is a sign of how seriously the allegations are being taken. A source with knowledge of the allegations welcomed the move to hand the inquiry to a third party. It's a reassuring sign about the palace's attitude to it. They've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, so I think they're really pushing this bullying story. It is not going to go away. They apparently will be beginning this investigation imminently and there's no time frame for it. The Times reported that the results, any lessons learned, as they put it, would be outlined with the new HR policies in either the coming sovereign grant or next year's sovereign grant. Those are usually both published in the summer. I can't imagine it'll be coming this year.
Yeah, that seems like it'd be very fast turnaround. But we're going to talk a bit later in the episode about what kind of receipts Meghan might have. So I'm quite interested to see what's going to come out of this and that it's going to be made public.
Well, Tom, you mentioned a fast turnaround. they'll take their time getting an outside law firm in to investigate the bullying claims, but they have already sorted out the allegations of racism. They handled that all on their own. We'll be getting into that a little bit later. But it's just so messy.
Yeah.
What was notable to me, though, is that although this came out on Sunday, there was a run of a few days where we didn't hear from palace sources, and the Daily Mail reported that the Queen had clamped down on her staff to stop leaks, that she wanted to take a more personal approach, which really just goes to show that she can control her staff, control the leaks when she wants to. So there's really no excuse for her running such a leaky ship the rest of the time.
Yeah, but someone who clearly can't be controlled, even when the Queen is putting her mind to it, is Charles, because it seems like he's not totally on board with this clampdown. We got some comments from sources as part of this 6-page Daily Mail investigation into claims made in the interview, which is mainly full of nothing, kind of what you'd expect. But it becomes quite specific when talking about Harry's claim about being cut off financially.
Yes, the report reads, according to informed sources, Harry received a lump sum from Prince Charles in late March 2020, towards the end of the 2019-2020 financial year, after renouncing his decision to step aside. This, we are told, was a sum of many hundreds of thousands of pounds. It seems to have been made over to him not as a final payoff, but to meet the costs of his new life in America going forwards. In other words, it was money for the year ahead until, as a source puts it, they sorted themselves out.
Additionally, they are told that it was made clear to the couple there would be more resources if required in the next financial year.
Yeah, so it's striking that the aspect of this that Prince Charles's team may have wanted to correct was to do with financially cutting off Harry.
Yeah.
The financial support, not the emotional support, I suppose, and not answering his calls and that kind of stuff.
I guess they are just always worried about people getting too close a look at royal finances. So maybe this is like almost a smokescreen.
But I thought we could go through the week in sort of chronological order and what the royals were up to, starting with Monday, Kate Middleton. Kensington Palace released a Zoom call that Kate did to honour International Women's Day.
Yeah, she spoke to Jasmine Harrison, who last month broke the world record as the youngest woman to solo row across the Atlantic Ocean.
And I don't know about you, Tom, but to me this came across as totally tactless.
Absolutely. Oh my god, this was totally ridiculous.
This, of course, came the day after Meghan spoke at some length about how the turning point in her time as a royal came when Kate, or members of Kate's team, essentially weaponised Kate's white woman tears against Meghan and then proceeded to do nothing to correct the story, which, of course, we now know kick-started the Meghan is a bully narrative that we're still seeing play out today.
It is shocking to me that nobody from Kate's team can see how this narrative looks. Did nobody think this through? There's really renewed cries about the Cambridges to do with the hypocrisy of their work around mental health. And now for Kate to do something as shameless as this?
But even more shameless, on Monday, sources close to Kate insisted to the Times newspaper that it was Kate who left this infamous bridesmaid's dress fitting in tears, not Meghan. They are clinging on to Meghan made Kate cry. And the Times reported that the following day, Kate allegedly took a bunch of flowers to Nottingham Cottage, where Harry and Meghan were living at the time, as a peace offering. But a source told the Times that Meghan slammed the door in Kate's face. And this was published in the Times on Monday, International Women's Day. So happy fucking International Women's Day. Love, Kate Middleton. Like, Kate's team couldn't have known what Meghan was going to say in the interview. And in a sense, it would be unfair to Jasmine Harrison to have done this interview and then not run with it. At the same time, this is woeful timing.
To make a show of supporting other women, whilst at the same time trying to once again push this narrative of Meghan as the angry black woman who made Kate cry, is absolutely despicable. And, I mean, obviously both of these women could have cried, but it tells you a lot that Kate is the one that apologised. That tells you a lot about what went down.
As well as that, I only had a quick look for this, but this seems to me to be the first time that Kate has done a solo engagement on International Women's Day. And this particular kind of engagement, speaking to a remarkable woman on International Women's Day, is a very fucking Meghan thing to do.
Yeah.
And it seems like the kind of thing Kate wouldn't have done a few years ago. And I know I bring this up a lot, the fact that Kate did not wear the black dress in recognition of the Time's Up movement to the BAFTAs that time. But I feel like Kate is not the kind of woman who wants to be closely aligned with feminist causes. I feel like she might think of that as something that's quite radical. Yeah. And even now, so to see her do something like this to mark International Women's Day with an engagement like this, something that she hasn't regularly done, seems like something straight out of the Meghan Markle playbook.
Yeah, I mean, we say it a lot, but the Cambridges don't do anything without a massive kick up the arse. So it's not a surprise.
And I don't know when this was recorded, but the expression on Kate's face to me was the definition of grinning and bearing it. But this was just a Zoom call. The first member of the royal family that we saw out in public doing an engagement was not the Queen, it was not Prince William, it was Prince Charles, and that was absolutely by design.
Of course, he wanted to be the strong face of the royal family, keeping calm and carrying on. So he went out for a tour of a pop-up clinic at Jesus House Church in Brent Cross, and he talked to people there, including staff and patients from Nigeria.
When he learned that the person he was speaking to was from Nigeria, he said, "Oh, fantastic, yes, I've been there. Lots of different ethnic groups. Do give them my kind regards next time you speak to them." Oh my god.
Oh my god, I laughed so much at this.
Lots of different ethnic groups.
Just give my kind regards to all the ethnic groups, all the lovely different ethnic groups.
To the people of Nigeria.
Wow.
Oh my god. And first time a member of the royal family is seen after Meghan's comments about racist concerns over Archie's skin colour, and we get this barrage of photos of Charles surrounded by people of colour, lots of pictures of him talking to black women. They posted them on Clarence House Instagram. It was absolutely shameless.
Yeah, it was the most transparent thing they could have done, really.
I think as well the fact that Charles wanted to be the first person to be pictured out and about after the interview is another sign of what we were kind of talking about in the last episode of Charles being the one effectively pulling the strings.
Yeah, and certainly wanting to be seen as such.
And bearing the brunt of Harry's criticisms in the Oprah interview, however subtle or coded they may have been. But on Wednesday, the Queen spoke.
Yes, Buckingham Palace released this statement. The whole family is saddened to learn the full extent of how challenging the last few years have been for Harry and Meghan. The issues raised, particularly that of race, are concerning. While some recollections may vary, they are taken very seriously and will be addressed by the family privately. Harry, Meghan and Archie will always be much-loved family members.
And we should note that this came out after a story on Monday evening that the Queen had refused to sign off on a draft statement that had been put together because she wanted something more personal or to hit the right tone. So there was this kind of hype around it, and we, there was a lot of anticipation of what she was going to say to hit that chord that she apparently was very eager to hit. Yet 36 hours after the interview, presumably a whole fucking team of people locked in a room. We heard from royal reporters like Richard Palmer at The Express that every member of the Palace comms team had their phone turned off, that they weren't taking any calls from journalists. Yet, this is the statement that they come out with.
The Queen was very careful to give it a lot of consideration, so we should probably give it all the attention that this 61-word statement deserves. So let's go through it line by line. The whole family is saddened to learn the full extent of how challenging the last few years have been for Harry and Meghan.
I think the whole family here is indicating that she is speaking for everyone. We're not going to be getting further statements, so we thought, from Charles or Will. This was including the whole gang.
Yeah.
saddened as well, and particularly the full extent seemed to me to be their way of indicating that they didn't know how rough things had become for Meghan, while also acknowledging that they kind of did know that things were at least a little bit rough.
And saying that it's challenging is such a mild way of putting this, and very hurtful way of putting it, when Meghan has bravely, publicly said that she didn't want to be alive anymore.
Yeah, it feels incredibly condescending and minimising of her pain. As well, using their first names, Harry and Meghan, seems like an attempt to be a little bit more personal or familial.
But you can't really do that in a statement that says so little else that is actually warm or supportive. So the next line is, the issues raised, particularly that of race, are concerning. I mean, what's concerning here is that they refer to them as issues of race rather than issues of racism.
Yeah, and I think we've seen that a lot this week in discussion of a race row.
Yeah.
And this real reluctance to use the term racism. And I think talking about it like this is really what contributes to a culture that is more outraged accusations of being racist than actual instances of racist behaviour.
Yeah, and discussing it in this way, with this phrase, does absolutely nothing to help clarify the matter whatsoever. It goes on, while some recollections may vary, they are taken very seriously and will be addressed by the family privately. Recollections may vary has to be the key phrase from this whole statement. Oh my God,
and it gave a lot of the press their headlines. They ran with this. They read this for what it was. It was as close to the palace could get to saying Meghan lied. It's looking straight up gaslighting, refuting Meghan's claims, very, very obviously pointing to the comments about the conversations around Archie's skin colour. And in doing this, they have given the people who want to defend the royal family's actions a sort of rallying cry. And on top of that, it really undermines the rest of the statement. Like, just those three words, recollections may vary, you know, even if you're generous enough to give them the benefit of the doubt with the rest of it, this is as close as they can get to saying, don't believe Meghan.
Yeah, and the only reason to possibly include this is to try and protect themselves. By trying to give themselves an out, they are really proving that no matter what they say, they don't take racism seriously, they don't take mental health seriously, and they only care about their own image. I don't really know why I'm surprised at that, but like every time it comes up, I'm just as shocked.
Like you say, it's not surprising. We saw that the royal family didn't make any statement around the time of the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement last summer. They obviously weren't reading their anti-racist reading list like they should have been. This kind of racist gaslighting just really shows that they are so far behind the rest of the world in their understanding of racism and anti-racism.
Of course.
I say this like it should come as a shock to anyone.
But like you said, like it undermines everything. You know, when they say like that they take these things very seriously, they didn't take them seriously at the time. They're only being forced to take them seriously, and I say that with like a huge roll of my eyes, now that it's been aired on a global stage.
Yeah, and the fact they say they're going to address things privately by the family, lowercase f family, means we will almost certainly never find out from them anyway what the result of
whatever kind of mess this is.
Or if they ever bother to do anything about it at all. Like, if you're addressing things privately, it's just, Charles, did you make some sort of comment about Archie's skin? No? Oh, grand.
It's even less than that, I think. It's like, Charles, do you think you're racist? No, I don't think I'm racist at all. Oh, well, that's probably fine then. But the Queen's warm flourish at the end is Harry, Meghan and Archie will always be much loved family members. After the whole rest of this statement, this last line falls totally flat for me.
Something about it feels so cold. You know, I think part of it is that it's exactly what they said in their previous two statements about Harry and Meghan. So that kind of repetition drains it of its meaning and makes it feel much chillier than the first time the Queen said it.
Yeah, but we don't have to look very far into the past to find a much more passionate palace statement. You only need to look at last week at the statement they made following the bullying allegations against Meghan.
And we did talk about this on our episode 2 episodes ago, the Countdown to Chaos episode, but I don't think we read out the whole statement, so I thought a few lines would be worth talking about. If you can contrast them saying they find the issues of race concerning with the line in the statement, "We are clearly very concerned about allegations in the Times following claims made by former staff of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex."
And they're going to address Harry and Meghan's claims privately, but our HR team will look into the circumstances outlined in the article. Members of staff involved at the time, including those who have left the household, will be invited to participate to see if lessons can be learned. It doesn't seem like they're particularly after lessons to be learned from this situation, though.
I do think it's worth making the distinction that they're talking here about paid employees, not members of the family. So they feel, obviously, they have some sort of duty of care to the people in their employ in the way they seemingly do not about people that have married into their family.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they said in the bullying statement, the royal household will not tolerate bullying or harassment in the workplace. I definitely agree that they have to treat things to do with employment differently, but would it have killed them to make it clear in this most recent statement that they don't tolerate racism?
Well, they find race concerning.
That I can believe.
I do think for a lot of people, this kind of statement the Palace released on Wednesday is enough.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that they addressed it at all will have ticked a box for many people.
Unfortunately.
It, of course, does not for us. I was trying to think of what they could have done that would make me go, that wasn't bad, actually. And I think anything less than a total mea culpa, admission of clear failings wouldn't have cut it with me.
Yeah, and a promise to publicly address this and find out what happened and what they can learn going forwards. I mean, I don't think we ever would have got something that bold, but I think there are probably some, quite realistic edits that could have been made. They definitely could have lost the recollections may vary line.
Yeah, and call it racism. Call it what it is. And then say racism is bad.
Yeah. It's really not rocket science. We don't even have a crisis team locked in this room with us to help with that.
I do think it is clearer than ever that they need fresh eyes on all of this. They urgently, desperately need some kind of outside help because the people working within this institution are so indoctrinated in the ways of this institution that their response is sorely, sorely lacking.
Yeah, I totally agree. If that's how the royals chose to respond with their words, their actions told a very different story this week.
I almost couldn't believe what I was seeing this week when we got paparazzi pictures of Prince William, Kate Middleton and Camilla Parker Bowles all in cars. And we so rarely get paparazzi pictures of any of them that I have to say I find it very curious anytime we do.
Totally. And the fact that they were all in cars and Will and Kate each separately driving. I think Camilla was being driven, given where she was sitting in the car. But they're definitely saying, look at us with our car keys.
And our driver's licenses. Almost in direct response to Meghan's claims in the Oprah interview that she had to hand over her driver's license, her keys and her passport to palace aides.
This seemed so coordinated. 3 within days?
Yeah, and immediately afterwards, it seemed to me to be reminiscent of those notorious budget flight photos of the Cambridges when Harry and Meghan were embroiled in all that private jet drama.
Yeah.
This is a dig.
Same kind of petty energy, but this is a lot more dangerous in a way. Just like the royal family, though, the press response to the interview was both very predictable and very shocking.
And it wasn't really a surprise to see Piers Morgan the co-host of Good Morning Britain, discussing Meghan's revelation that she'd had suicidal thoughts. But the way that he talked about it was really disgusting.
The main takeaway from that was that he didn't believe what Meghan had said about having suicidal thoughts. And following Monday's show, Ofcom have revealed that they received over 41,000 complaints about what he said.
And on Tuesday, Piers walked off the show after being confronted about the very personal nature of his dislike of Meghan by one of his colleagues, Alex Beresford.
Then on Wednesday, ITV announced that Piers Morgan would be leaving the show for good, which was obviously a massive cause for celebration for a lot of people.
You had a lot of people defending him at the same time.
Yeah.
People like Sharon Osbourne and Gary Lineker, and like he's not going to be gone for long.
Yeah, he'll be popping up somewhere else and probably talking about how Meghan Markle cancelled him or something.
We did find out a few days after this that Meghan herself had raised concerns with ITV about the effect Piers Morgan's comments may have had on the issue of mental health generally, and specifically those attempting to deal with their own problems, not about his personal attack against her. But I thought that was very interesting that Meghan would make it known that she had lodged a complaint.
Yeah. I mean, it's notable that she made it known that her concern was for other people who had suffered the same thing as her and not about the personal attack. But, you know, that's never how it's going to be reported.
Yeah, certainly a lot of the reports were saying Meghan got Piers fired.
Yeah.
Although it's unclear if he quit or what the circumstances of his leaving were exactly. But beyond this one specific case, Harry's comments that the British press is bigoted had a much wider effect. Much wider than I was expecting, to be honest. On Tuesday, the Society of Editors responded to what they described as Harry's attack on the press with a statement written by its executive director, Ian Murray, that said it is not acceptable for the Duke and Duchess to make such claims without providing any supporting evidence. And it ended, the UK media has never shied away from holding a spotlight up to those in positions of power, celebrity or influence. If sometimes the questions asked are awkward and embarrassing, then so be it, but the press is most certainly not racist.
This was such a bad idea.
A stunningly bad idea. Followed by then more than 160 journalists of colour, along with the editors of The Guardian, The Financial Times and The Huffington Post, objected to this statement and signed an open letter in response in which they gave some examples of research into times when the British press has been found to be racist, including a study from 2016 that found press coverage was uniquely aggressive in its campaigns against refugees and migrants, and research from 2018 that found news stories in mainstream media were contributing to Islamophobia.
Which doesn't come as a surprise to anybody who follows the British press at all. Like,
it was, I think, important though to zoom out of the Harry and Meghan stuff.
Yes, yeah.
And talk about it more broadly.
This open letter ended, the Society of Editors should have used the comments by the Sussexes to start an open and constructive discussion about the best way to prevent racist coverage in future, including through addressing lack of representation in the UK media, particularly at a senior level. The blanket refusal to accept there is any bigotry in the British press is laughable, does a disservice to journalists of colour, and shows an institution and an industry in denial.
Yeah, and on top of that, Charlene White, who's an ITV News anchor and a black woman, she was going to host the National Press Awards, which is organised by the Society of Editors, and she dropped out. She released a statement directed at Ian Murray, the executive director, saying, perhaps it's best for you to look elsewhere for a host for your awards this year. Perhaps someone whose views align with yours, that the UK press is the one institution in the entire country who has a perfect record on race.
Perfectly encapsulates the ridiculousness of his statement, and he has since resigned, saying, while I do not agree that the Society's statement was in any way intended to defend racism, I accept it could have been much clearer in its condemnation of bigotry and has clearly caused upset. As Executive Director, I lead the Society and as such must take the blame. So I've decided it's best for the board and the membership that I step aside so the organisation can start to rebuild its reputation.
He also said the original statement was not intended to gloss over the fact the media industry in the UK does have work to do on inclusivity and diversity.
I want to know what part of the press is most certainly not racist implies that it has work to do on anything.
But it's very fascinating to me, the ripple effect that this Oprah interview has had, because, you know, I've seen some people who aren't fans of the royals, people I've been talking to who are not interested in Harry and Meghan, and they were saying, like, Oprah has been dragged into this is so embarrassing. But really it's having this much broader impact over here, at least anyway, where people are talking, you know, we're having features in the broadsheet Sunday newspapers talking about, is Britain racist? And it's really ignited this much larger discussion about racism in the press and in society here.
And it's important, I think, to take away that part of this ripple effect is creating an environment where journalists of colour can speak up about their experiences of working within the industry and the limitations it's put on them in the past.
Yeah. Time now, Tom, to move on to the quote of the week. Perhaps it will turn out to be the quote of the year.
Yes, on Thursday, Will and Kate visited School 21 in Stratford, East London, to show their support for teachers and students. This is because lockdown measures have been eased in the UK, schools are reopening and kids are going back. And apparently they spoke to some of the teachers there about the mental health initiatives that are being implemented at the school to welcome kids back.
And again, I would say the Cambridge's team couldn't have known what Harry and Meghan were going to talk about in the interview. It's very possible this was planned far, far in advance of the Oprah interview. At the same time, this is tone deaf to me. To have these two fucking out talking about the importance of mental health, why no one should feel alone, as they put it in a Kensington Royal tweet, days after Meghan spoke so movingly about how the royal family has no understanding whatsoever on mental health.
It's total bullshit. And I can't imagine how awkward it would be to be one of these teachers explaining to the royals, to these two fucking people, about the measures they're implementing to help kids in school.
I would say, though, all of these details effectively got lost.
Yeah.
Because as they were going into the school, Will, for some reason, decided to answer a question from the press. And as far as I can tell, the Kensington Palace comms team would have told these journalists, do not ask a fucking thing about Harry and Meghan's interview. Nothing. Do not ask.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, they're not going to listen to that. And one of the journalists did decide to chance it and asked, and Will just couldn't fucking help himself.
Yeah, the first question they asked was about whether or not he'd spoken to Harry, and he'd said he hadn't yet, but he would soon. But the second question was, is the royal family a racist family, sir? I love the sir. And Will responded with our quote of the week. We are very much not a racist family.
I was flabbergasted by this.
Yeah.
I was astonished by this. I couldn't believe it. And you got to watch the clip if you haven't already. We posted it on Instagram at AirheadsPod. But the fact that this is happening as Will and Kate and some of the school staff are walking, Will effectively throws this over his shoulder, and keeps moving. It is such a
dismissive,
so offhand, thoughtless, careless way of addressing this question. And it is mind-blowing to me that he would say anything at all in response to this, other than no comment.
Yeah. I mean, the manner in which he answered this question, let alone the actual content of his answer, totally goes against what that palace statement purported, that they take these things very seriously.
And that they're going to handle it privately.
Yeah.
What is private about blasting out to the world, we are very much not a racist family? Also, just that fucking phrasing is doing my head in.
Yeah.
Very much not.
But the result of Will's comment is that you got headlines like William blasts back at race slur, which was one the Daily Mail led with, which is such a shameless reframing of these allegations, making the royal family the victims in the narrative.
As well as that, I think it shows how little awareness he has of anything to do with racism, that, you know, the royal family's history is a racist history, that his grandfather has made many racist comments, that his uncle, Prince Andrew, is said to have used the N-word, used other racist slurs, that there have been countless instances of racism throughout history for the royal family, going back centuries.
To say this about any family should raise some questions, but to say it about the fucking royal family, an institution that has profited off the backs of people of colour for, like you say, centuries, is utterly deranged.
It's a total piss take, and as well as that, this very aggressive defensiveness. You know, you can hear in his voice there is that bite in it that shows he's taking this very personally, and he's thinking, like we said before, about the effect of accusing someone of being a racist rather than actual racist behaviour. His way of talking about this very aggressive defensiveness, and you can hear it in that sort of bite in his voice when he gives this answer. It shows that he is concerned only about the image of the royal family, and probably specifically his own image, rather than making any statement about condemning racism or being anti-racist in his response. He is concerned only with preserving his own image.
It's almost like he hasn't really learnt that much from his work on racism in football. It's like he hasn't taken that much in. Almost like he was bored.
I have to say, though, like, the drama of this kind of direct response was thrilling.
Yeah.
Especially after the palace statement. This just came as such a shock. And a massive, massive, massive fuck up, and one I feel like a lot of people will never forget.
This should go down in history. It's another historic moment.
This is his legacy.
Yeah. I think it looks weird with this image of the Queen that we're getting as well, because we talked about how she's been clamping down on stuff. She issues this statement where she's speaking for all of them. But then you have Will clearly not taking it seriously, speaking publicly about the matter, and absolutely not playing ball. Like, is the Queen strong, or is she unable to control her own family?
Yeah, and to have Will flat out denying there's any racism in the family when the Queen has said that they would be addressing these matters privately suggests, has the family already addressed them and it's all over and done with?
Yeah, do they really find it as simple as just asking each other if they're racist or not?
And we should mention as well that Prince Charles was also asked about the interview when he went out during the week, and he was wearing a mask, but he sort of chuckled, according to Richard Palmer, the royal reporter for The Express. And obviously it's very hard to tell what that chuckle was. I think it's probably more like, you think I'm going to answer that? Or, wow, what an incredibly awkward question, haha.
Yeah.
Than him laughing off Harry and Meghan. I don't think he's quite that
stupid. Because this is in no way a funny situation for Charles, because we've talked a lot about how when he becomes king, he's going to have to really work overtime to try and get the same kind of approval ratings as the Queen regularly pulls in. So this is not a like haha moment for him.
That's why he did this very naked play to cozy up to black people in photographs this week. And send his kind regards to all of Nigeria.
But at this school visit, we also got our Fit for a Queen.
Yeah, Kate in lots of new pink things. Wearing a bright pink overcoat from Max & Co. with a pink jumper with a scallop collar from Bowden. And her wide leg jigsaw trousers, as well as some chunky heeled pumps. I thought it was interesting she wore the coat without the belt. It comes with a belt, which I thought gave it a much nicer silhouette with the wide leg trousers.
Very groovy. Very 70s.
She was wearing the floral face mask that we've seen her wear a few times. I do think it's notable that Kate and Will both seem to be wearing masks a lot more often since the criticism of the Royal Train Tour.
Yeah. And perhaps now that they want to have their expressions a little more inscrutable.
And all of the pink is remarkable as well. I thought she also wore a pink pussy bow blouse on her Zoom call for International Women's Day. And I wouldn't have pegged this as, you know, a signature colour for Kate before, but she has worn it somewhat regularly over the past year. I'm thinking of the pink Marks and Spencer suit that she's worn as a suit and as separates. And, you know, that shade of pink obviously has a very cheering effect, which is good in lockdown, but it's also, I think, a more of a softening colour, more of a delicate colour for Kate. And as well as that, this kind of style that she's been wearing compared to the more dressy sort of coat dresses and more formal day wear that she wore for the past few years, I think that is significant here. And I think she obviously doesn't want to look too serious or heavy after the Oprah interview, although I kind of wonder, did it swing too far in the other direction?
Yeah, possibly. Although we have heard that like Diana would wear bright colours when meeting kids because they like it more and stuff, so maybe that played into it.
It stood out to me though that Kate seemed very uncomfortable at this engagement, and we talk a lot about how she's at her best when she's around kids and she seems most at ease, but it felt awkward to me in a way that she usually doesn't.
Almost like her husband had dropped a massive fucking bombshell on the wall on the way in.
According to Dumois, the Instagram gossip account, somebody had submitted that this was meant to be a solo engagement for Kate. Obviously, those kind of submissions are totally unverified, but I think it is a compelling possibility that Will decided to go to. We saw as well that some tabloid reports that he wanted to protect her from being asked about whether she made Meghan cry. I wonder if she feels protected, or perhaps she feels like he fucked her over and
Massively.
overshadowed the whole event because he couldn't resist fucking vomiting out this apocalyptically bad statement, and now no one is talking about #mentally healthy schools at all.
And I was thinking like, worried about her being asked questions, but she had her tactic down perfectly when she was going in. She was head down, looking at the floor, not reacting to anything. Like, she could have just done that on her own. There would have been none of this crisis, and, like you say, people would have actually paid attention, possibly, to what she was doing.
There were still a lot of pictures of her, often pictures of her solo on the front pages the following day, which I thought was a little bit of a shitty move.
Yeah.
Given it was Will that made the comment. Maybe I'm getting a little bit tinfoil hat here, but there were a lot of pictures of them with a black member of staff at the school, and looked like they weren't all that able to make eye contact with this woman.
I mean, it would have taken some brass neck to look her in the eye after what they've been accused of.
I would love to know what was going through that woman's head when she was beside Will, as he said, we are very much not a racist family.
Well, presumably she was just, like, really put at ease and had any of her worries assuaged. This is Tom and Maeve from the future. We got some more breaking news we want to discuss after we recorded the main part of the episode.
Yes, and just a content warning, we are going to be talking a little bit about the death of Sarah Everard, who was a 33-year-old woman who was abducted while walking home from a friend's house in South London earlier this month and was later found murdered.
The reason we're going to talk about it is that Kate was seen at a tribute that was held for her in Clapham Common on Saturday.
I was so shocked to see Kate there. Like, on one hand, because it's so rare to see any member of the royal family doing something like this.
Yeah.
But also because this tribute, they had planned a vigil for 6 p.m. that evening, and it had been cancelled by police after they determined that it would be a breach of lockdown restrictions.
We're seeing a bit of a rogue duchess here from Kate.
Defying the lockdown, defying a police ban.
Yeah, well, it was her and lots of other people, because thousands of people went anyway.
Throughout the day.
Yeah, and Kate brought flowers to the memorial, daffodils that she had picked from the garden at Kensington Palace earlier that day.
Which we know because Kensington Palace confirmed that it really was Kate attending, and that the reason she wanted to go was because she remembers what it was like to walk around London at night before she was married. And I felt like that was quite significant to me because it suggests that Kate felt like she could identify with Sarah Everard, who was a young white woman, and that's why this story really resonated with Kate, because Kate could relate to Sarah, presumably in a way Kate and the rest of the royal family felt they couldn't during the Black Lives Matter protests last summer.
Yeah, we didn't see any of them popping up in the middle of everything then. But we didn't need Kensington Palace to confirm that it was really Kate who was there, because she went without a mask and she was captured by a Sky News journalist on film.
And we should note that masks aren't mandatory outdoors here, and there were definitely lots of other people gathered around the Bandstand and Clapham Common who weren't wearing masks, but it seems obvious to me that Kate chose not to wear a mask for the express purpose of being recognised. Like, we saw her wearing a mask in her own car this week, wearing a mask when they were outdoors at the school visit. Like, she's clearly taking mask wearing a lot more seriously than she was last year.
And it made me think, like, why did she want to be recognised? Some people have said it was to draw attention to the cause, which is obviously very important, but it has been a front page news story for the whole week, and it definitely didn't need Kate there to give it a boost. Like, it was going to get covered no matter what happened.
Yeah, and I would say her appearance ended up being more of a distraction, honestly. Like, the photos of Kate, just that one photo from a screen grab from that iPhone clip by the Sky News journalist, that photo was used on the front page of most of the British papers on Sunday.
And we should note that once it got dark at the vigil, the police started using force against those who were gathered there. And I mean, this was, hours after Kate had been there, but it's these really striking images of police brutality that should have been on the front pages of these newspapers.
Yeah, not Kate.
Yeah.
To be frank, I have very complicated feelings about this appearance from Kate, mostly because it feels so out of character for her, to me, in my opinion. Like, we discussed earlier on this episode about her International Women's Day engagement and how, as far as we recall, Kate has never been outspoken about feminism or women's rights or sexual violence, and at times she has deliberately shied away from engaging with those issues, like, as I mentioned earlier, ignoring the Time's Up black dress code at the BAFTAs in 2018. So, of course it's possible that she was so moved by the Sarah Everard story that she wanted to go and pay her respects, as so many people across the UK and abroad have been.
We don't like to question Kate's motives on this occasion. And, I don't want to suggest, really, that she was hijacking this memorial for a publicity stunt. But it is so hard to separate this appearance from the context of this week and all of the royal family's catastrophic PR at the moment.
What was even more surprising to me was seeing how the Telegraph interpreted this appearance from Kate. On their front page, they had analysis from one of their political correspondents who described Kate's appearance as a not-so-subtle political statement. And he said she knew her message would be received loud and clear by the likes of Boris Johnson, Priti Patel and Sadiq Khan.
They said this was the Duchess's Me Too moment, in a week where women have insisted that Sarah Everard's death must be a watershed for women's safety. It was also arguably the most calculated attempt to move the dial of a major political issue since the Queen's famous 2014 intervention in the Scottish independence referendum.
I was stunned by this, honestly.
I think this is giving Kate way too much credit.
it's an incredible reach to compare it to the Queen's intervention in Indie Ref.
Yeah.
Although it's fascinating to me that the Telegraph seems to be praising Kate, the future Queen, for breaking with the long-held royal tradition for impartiality. And I can't help but wonder, would Meghan have received such approving coverage if she had done the same?
And I think it's very obvious what the answer to that question would be.
Because this kind of appearance is, as we said, almost unprecedented in the royal family. Though you may remember on the South Africa tour in 2019 when Meghan made a private visit to the memorial for Uyinene Motiana, who was a Cape Town student who had been raped and murdered months before. So it's something that you kind of could see Meghan doing, were she still a senior working royal. But it just seems so out of character for Kate that I can't help but be a little bit sceptical. However, maybe this is a new side to Kate that we are going to start seeing more of.
Yeah, I would really look forward to her continuing to put this work in. And, you know, is she going to be lobbying the government to protect women? Is she going to be keeping the conversation going? Is she going to be using her voice to amplify these matters?
Is she going to keep her Hunter Welly on Boris Johnson's neck until he makes these streets safe for women, Tom?
I absolutely hope so. But Sunday, which is today, is also Mother's Day in the UK, and the Kensington Royal Instagram account shared some cards that the kids had made for Diana.
The caption read, "This year Mother's Day will be different once again. Many of us will be apart from our loved ones, but looking forward to a time in the not too distant future when we can give our mother a hug again. But for those experiencing bereavement, today may be particularly challenging. Each year on Mother's Day, George, Charlotte and Louis make cards remembering their granny, Diana, for William. Whatever your circumstances, we are thinking of you this Mother's Day." I was really, really, really taken by surprise.
Yeah.
With these.
Absolutely.
This felt so personal.
Yeah, they were very personal, I felt as well. George and Charlotte each had cards they'd written in theirs. George said, "Dear Granny Diana, happy Mother's Day. I love you very much and think of you always, sending lots of love from George." And Charlotte wrote, "Dear Granny Diana, I'm thinking of you on Mother's Day. I love you very much. Papa is missing you. Lots of love, Charlotte." So I think that reference to William has really struck a chord with a lot of people.
Yes. My favourite though was Louis.
Oh yes. It was so good.
He just wrote his name and he had this very artistic, messy heart drawing with adorable stickers of animals. There was a rabbit, a frog, big bird, little bird, various bugs.
Yeah, it was great. And it was all on this incredibly vibrant green background, which I feel like is very popular in graphic design at the moment. And it was very eye-catching, and I thought it was really cute.
There was a piece about this in the Telegraph, which read that the Telegraph understands the Cambridge's decision to release the intensely personal cards and to reveal that the children make them for their late grandmother every year was made due to the pandemic.
I mean, I certainly agree that they are intensely personal, but I do question as to whether this was just a decision made due to the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, we were saying earlier, it's very hard not to read everything the royals have done this week as in some way related to the fallout from Harry and Meghan's interview. And I was just so surprised to see the kids being spotlighted in this way, in this kind of narrative. And that Telegraph piece also includes the line, "The poignant reference to Diana is thought to have been made to show that the Cambridges have empathy and understand their feelings of loss." Honestly, the line, "the Cambridges have empathy," made me laugh.
Yeah.
Putting it so bluntly.
I mean, these are people whose main job is to be seen talking to people. And if they can't show that empathy through actual engagements with people, let alone all the stuff that's come out about how they allegedly treated a member of their own family who was going through severe mental health struggles, putting up some cards on Instagram as a ploy to show empathy, I thought was like funny, but also kind of despicable.
And the fact that they're so insecure about it that they can't even let the cards and the caption speak for itself. They have to rely on the Telegraph to tell us.
Yeah.
This is showing you that the Cambridges have empathy.
It's ridiculous.
To underline it in that way is overkill to me. And I think, 4 days after Harry and Meghan's interview, when Meghan very bravely shared her struggles with mental health, Will just came out and told everyone he still hadn't called Harry. And now wants us to believe that actually he has quite a lot of empathy because his kids made these cute cards.
It really feels like they just think we're thick.
I find it very uncomfortable talking about this because I don't want it to sound like we're telling anybody how to grieve. Like, we are not parents. We have no experience talking about this kind of grief with children. But at the same time, it makes me a little bit uneasy hearing how Harry has talked about his grief, being in the spotlight like that, to see George and Charlotte and Louis front and centre in this story. I just wish they would leave the kids out of it.
Yeah.
Until they're a little bit older, it seems far too intimate to me.
No, I agree. But it wouldn't be the first time the Cambridges have got a bit of a PR boost from the kids, though.
No, you're absolutely right.
Back to the episode. What about our first in line?
I'm going to go with Meghan this week, Tom.
Yeah, without making any other big statements or appearances, she's managed to defeat Piers Morgan. She's got the royals incredibly flustered.
She's got Will to make a tit of himself.
Yeah. And, the result of that has been sparking a much broader conversation about racism in the royal family, in the UK, in the UK press at large.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that as well as challenging the press, the comments from the Oprah interview also drove the press to challenge itself, with the journalists of colour writing that open letter and pushing for more diversity in newsrooms. And, we should emphasise that obviously Ian Murray and Piers Morgan's resignations are not direct results of what Meghan said, but the result of their own reactions to her.
And that's something they had total control over. So I loved that Meghan was using white men's irrational and racist anger against them.
And she has got receipts.
Yeah.
Meghan clearly authorised 2 friends and allies, Janina Gavankar and Gayle King, to make it known that she has been keeping a record of emails and texts. Gayle said on CBS this morning, "I think Meghan has plenty of receipts, meaning she's been keeping track of things."
Yes. Show us the receipts. As Janina also said on ITV's show this morning, she was talking about the interview which she apparently watched with Meghan, and she also discusses the palace's statement in response. She says that Meghan knew that she was talking to the programme, but that she was speaking just for herself and not for Meghan. She said, "After reading this short palace statement that came out from Buckingham Palace, I thought 2 things. On one side, I thought I am so thankful that they are finally acknowledging the experience that Meghan had. But on the other side, I know the family and the staff were well aware of the extent of it. And although their recollections may vary, ours don't, because we lived through it with them." And there are many emails and texts to support that.
I thought this was such a funny appearance watching her interact with Holly and Phil.
Yeah, so funny. Like, Phil looking so grumpy and trying to, trip her up, and Janina just saying, "Did you watch the interview?" And they're not really knowing how to respond to that.
With this very sort of tranquil, content expression on her face. She was also asked about the bullying accusations against Meghan, and she said she knows Meghan isn't a bully as they've been friends for 17 years, but that she's glad people are doing their due diligence, because she claimed that some member of staff left for gross misconduct. And there is allegedly email proof of that too.
There could be potentially so much more to come out of this, if we believe it'll ever become public.
I do want to just end by talking a little bit about the new photo the Sussexes released to mark International Women's Day, which shows Meghan holding Archie and Harry with his arms around them both, so you can only see Meghan's face. It's another black and white image, and again, it was taken remotely via iPad by their friend, the photographer Miss Anne Harriman. But I thought this was just a really nice moment and a really nice visual to cap off this very emotional weekend that they had. You know, this image, bringing it back to this family of 4, emphasizing that this is their focus going forward on the new baby, their life in America, with that sort of tree of life in the background of the photo, very much not the past. That, you know, it seems to me that they were sort of closing that chapter with the Oprah interview.
Yeah, it seemed like that to me as well. And it was nice to get something so positive after really a couple of weeks of chaos and seeing Meghan in particular dragged through the press. It was really nice to get an image like that to round it out. Next week, we don't know what's in store, but maybe we'll hear more about how Philip's doing, because they really stopped updating us on that once it realised that it wasn't going to distract CBS from airing the interview.
Yeah, all of the very vocal concern for Prince Philip's well-being and respecting the Queen at this difficult time for Philip seems to have really quietened down.
But you never know, we might get more information next week.
We are coming up to our 100th episode.
Yeah.
So we're trying to think of something fun we can do for that. If you have any ideas, please let us know.
And thanks again to everyone who said such nice things. We're going to put the Ko-fi link in the show notes so you can find it there, and we probably will never mention it again.
Never. So embarrassing. But thank you so much as well for listening to us today. And we hope this week is a little bit quieter than last, and we might get to take a little bit of a break. But we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
We're very much not a racist family.